Hello everyone. Just thought I'd do a quick video reflecting on the scenes yesterday in Washington. Scenes of carnage and chaos that have left 4 people dead. And throughout the Trump presidency, many things have shocked me, but I think scenes like that, it's kind of shocking, but it was also predictable. This kind of dark crescendo to this absolute horror of a presidency, and yet even in the video that Trump put out, saying the election was stolen, but go home. I mean, that's the contradiction right there. You can't. At the last election here in the UK, I wasn't happy with the result, but did I think the election was legitimate? Yes, we have a flawed first past the post system, but I accepted it that it had integrity. That was the real vote, and the Conservatives won. If I thought the election had been stolen, I would be out protesting. I would be out doing what I can, because I'd suddenly find I was in a fascist authoritarian state where elections were stolen. Thankfully, I don't live in that state, and neither does the US. But Trump perpetuating this lie, amplified by the right-wing media in the US, has led to this situation. These people feel the election was stolen. I don't know if all of them think that. Some of them, it's a mix. They just can't stand the thought that their man has lost. They're losers. They're sore losers. But yeah, it's this lie that it was all rigged, that Trump has continually said since the election, and he won't change. He's not going to concede at any point. And that's what's led to that fury and that rage that has been fanned by Fox News, Newsmax, OANN, these right-wing media networks. That's led to where we were yesterday in Washington, and it's tragic. And you just imagine for 1 second if those were Black Lives Matter protesters or Muslims storming the Capitol building. I mean, can you imagine? It would, there'd be. Can we get more machine guns? More machine guns, please. They keep jamming. It would have been a bloodbath. It would have been a bloodbath. And it's the most stark example I've ever seen of white privilege. It's white privilege on steroids that these people were allowed to do that and rampage through the building. I mean, but you also had cops, these Capitol police cops, who were taking selfies with some of the protesters. I mean, whereas they'd been mowing them down with guns if they were black. That's the truth of it. So it's a real example of just how it's one rule for one and one rule for the other in the US. And Joe Biden, I think he said some of the right things in the video statement he put out. But yeah, as always, he's looking for unity. And these people, they don't want unity. They would have happily killed Joe Biden if he was there. So when he makes statements like, this isn't America, he said in this video, well, I'm sorry, Joe, it is. It is, and it's the US you're dealing with, where half of your country has lost its mind. That's the truth of it, I'm afraid. And to get these people back on your side, I really don't know how you're going to bring them back into reality, because how do you find compromise when these two sides, they have two different universes? They live with two different sets of facts. One actual truth that most of the time they're getting from the mainstream media, and one the right-wing media ecosphere that is feeding them bullshit all day. I mean, when one side is getting its news from a totally biased perspective and lies and distortions of the truth are happening every day, how can you have compromise with that when they live in two different realities? The people, Democrats and Republicans now, they just live on different planets. And I think there's no doubt in my mind that the election of Barack Obama was the genesis of this. That's where it all started, because these fragile white men and some women, but most of the protesters, these domestic terrorists, they're not protesters, what they were doing yesterday, they're aggrieved white men, and when they saw a mixed race man become president of the United States, that's where suddenly there were militias springing up all over the place. It's the WASPs, which is the traditional power structure of the US, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, that, traditionally they've had everything. They've had all the power in the US. And now there are people from ethnic minorities, women getting into power. And we're going to have, obviously, the Vice President, Kamala Harris, an ethnically Indian and African American vice president, and they're just losing their minds at that they don't have all the power that they have always had in the US, that's changing, and they can't take it, and it's really sad. But social media is another huge part of it, and he's been. I think Facebook and YouTube have taken down the video statement. Twitter's blocked him for 12 hours, but they've given him a warning that if he doesn't stick to the community guidelines, he will be permanently removed. Well, Trump's sticking to any community guidelines. Some of the stuff he's tweeted, any normal person, there are even Twitter accounts that are parody Trump. So what they do is they just literally repeat what he says, but under a different identity, and these posts are removed because they fail the community guidelines. But Trump, because he's the president, he tweets stuff that other people tweet and would have been removed for it in the past. So he needs to be banned from social media. He needs to be banned from Twitter, from Facebook, from YouTube, because as Sacha Baron Cohen, there's a great speech, ADL speech, the Anti-Defamation League that Sacha Baron Cohen made, and it talks about how you can have the right to free speech, but you don't have the right to free reach. And that's what you get with these platforms. And these are private companies. No one should have the automatic right to be broadcast on there. They have these community standards, and Trump and the right wing violate them all the time and incite violence. And as I say, this was so predictable and yet so horrific, and that social media is vastly fueling the problem and the division and the hatred in the US. And these platforms, it's getting to the point that you need to regulate them properly because they're not regulating themselves. And here I am broadcasting on a few of them, and see the irony in that, but it's part of our lives, and we need to, but we need to also be honest about the corrosive effect it can have if these platforms are used in the wrong way and maliciously, and they are being by Trump and his supporters. And well, I mean, Biden's coming in soon, but my God, what a job he has got on his hands. I mean, as well as the pandemic, but to try and heal the divisions in the US, I don't know if that's going to be possible. I don't know if these Trump supporters, these domestic terrorists that they were yesterday in the Capitol, I don't think they can be reached, really. I think they're too far gone. But yeah, that's all I've got to say, really. It's just it's not much uplifting. Obviously, we're in a difficult situation here at the moment. My thoughts go out to everyone having to homeschool again. It's difficult times, but hey, President Biden's coming in soon, so hopefully some order will be restored. And there was good news from Georgia that John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock taking both those seats. So now the Democrats control the House of Representatives, Senate, and the White House. From a few weeks' time, President Biden will be in charge. So there's no excuses now. They won't have Mitch McConnell blocking every decent piece of legislation. So that is good news that the Democrats, the Republicans don't deserve to have power again. They don't. They're not a sane political party anymore. They're a collection of white supremacists, militias, crazy conspiracy kooks, gun nuts, Nazis. That's who they are. They've gone off the edge. They've been driven off the edge of sanity by right-wing media. And they don't deserve to have control of any of those bodies in the US anymore. They don't deserve it. And they won't have any control. From a few weeks' time, it's all in the Democrats' hands. And Republicans have lost, and they deserve to lose. Because they're losers. But anyway, hope everyone's having an okay day, despite all the madness going on in the world. Maybe a bit of meditation today, a bit of yoga, a gratitude list, all the stuff that keeps me reasonably sane. Not completely, but anyway. Yeah. Take care of yourselves, everyone, and take care.